Is your WW3 news of a Friday afternoon. Now, there was a very interesting piece of BBC reportage, probably the best ever investigative journalism they've done so far in their miserable history, regarding a known human trafficker which was arrested 10 years ago, and he was convicted, and he earned around about 100,000 quid a month, no, a week, through smuggling these clandestines into the United Kingdom. We're talking about 5,000 euro per head. And obviously the journalist was questioning him about it and showed him a video of the conviction. And it's him, because it corresponds to a certain tattoo which he has on his arm. And you find this character now in a claiming asylum, working in his brother's vet shop, driving a motor vehicle without probably no driving license or motor insurance. And how many of these people came over which are mobsters or organised crime syndicates of the Middle East? It's absolutely incredible. The BBC claims there's more than 20 of these people, big bosses, which now claim asylum seeking. Because these vape shops, Turkish barber shops, beauty parlours, it's all a legal way to launder money from human smuggling, sale of drug trafficking, and even the sale of arms. Because in some of these small boats, the French police did exactly find military firearms, explosives, and drugs as well. They don't just smuggle, human beings over. And all this money is to eliminate this so-called refugee mafia, called it. Then there was a very astonishing case of a so-called Pakistani family in the United Kingdom who refused the council house accommodation. And judging by the photos of this house, bloody hell, it's a fucking good house. It says it's too isolated. Yes, too isolated from what? From a school. Well, he can groom the kids at the school and study with his pedo sick pals, which they hang out. Amazingly enough, this Pakistani couple, he had a working visa that expired. Then he applied for asylum seeker status. How you can grant that to a person who had a working permit? It goes to show there's something in the system which doesn't work. It's corrupt. And it goes to show, more you give to these people, more that unsatisfied they are. Are they really refugees? They don't behave like them. They don't. I think who flees from a war-torn country is probably more thankful towards who host them. These they don't practically speaking a plate where they eat from. And all these stuff is funded by the taxpayers. Then after there's a story, a mum and a kid who was in an emergency accommodation, got chucked out to make space for these so-called boat crossers. Absolutely disgusting. This is basically what we have. They say charity begins at home, not overseas, but it's the other way round. with these governments. They tend to hate and not to help the people of the country. Mind you, people of the country, people pay taxes to maintain these scumbags and lazy bastards, grooming gangs, rapists, whatever, child abusers or terrorists, and so-called silent hotels. And then there's another thing, there was a story of a 250,000, what you would call it, housing estate, spanking brand new house. Locals wouldn't consult about who were moving into there. And somehow it was suspended or stopped. I wonder why. Because I think people who don't want these people near their house, it's due to the fact they're all villains and good for nothing people. There's probably not even one decent person amongst them. This is the reality of things, basically. And this is the current situation, the society we live in. Absolutely disgusting. People who are in need in these countries, not those imported fake poverty people. The locals are treated like shit. And they import these so-called third world poverty, which I don't think they need these accommodations. They're not refugees, they're nothing. And when they cross over the boats, they'll probably throw their passports or mobile phone in the water. As one video has been shown on GB News, and one of them even said, "This is the end of England." If it continues like this, it will be the end of England, even in the West as well. Europe will be filled to the brim with these people who are just absolutely a nuisance for the locals. End of story. And for the people who live in these areas. Sexual violence, paedophile cases of young girls and kids get sexually assaulted, kidnapped, and shot up wherever Western country you go. What's even more worse is you have a very complicity in mass media not reporting it, mainly. And this is on an everyday basis. What is the respective governments doing? Are they tackling this social phenomenon, which is just an absolute plague raging through our society, basically?